Part 103. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1021. When it comes to distributing trophies, that is the most exciting thing. This is also one of the reasons why the battles in the Black Dragon domain are exciting. Through these trophies, the demigods can feed themselves with fighting, and become stronger as they fight. Therefore, everyone all in high spirits. In the command cabin of Xuanhuan, Qin Li and Mo Xiang began to distribute the spoils. In this battle, we wiped out a total of 38 enemies and obtained 38 sets of forbidden armor. According to the previous agreement with Team 179, the spoils of forbidden armor were divided equally between the two teams, so each of our two teams received 19 sets of forbidden armor. Qin Li said, taking out the forbidden armor that he had captured on the battlefield, and gave the extra sets to Mo Xiang. Mo Xiang received the forbidden armor and nodded. After a while, these forbidden armors will be distributed again among the squads to avoid heavy losses if these important materials are concentrated on one person and exploded. After returning to the base, you can get many rewards after turning in these forbidden armors. Many people who had not obtained the forbidden armor before still hope to be able to fuse it again. As for the two Void Divine Thunders that Xiaoping'an and Qin Li contributed previously, their respective teams will discuss and make up for them among the team's trophies. In addition to the forbidden armor, you will also receive 56,880 standard divine crystals. These divine crystals will be distributed equally among all participants in the armor. Each person can obtain 5,170 divine crystals. Qin Li said, and the team members who had previously obtained the divine crystals had already, after taking out all the divine crystals, more than 100,000 divine crystals were floating in the huge space of the flying boat command cabin, slowly rotating, like stars in the sky, extremely bright. This scene was really exciting. After flying around for a few seconds, these divine crystals turned into 11 divine crystal waterfalls and flew in front of everyone. Each of these standard divine crystals contained 300 points of divine power. In this way, everyone gained the number of divine power points exceeded 1.5 million. For everyone except Xiaoping'an, this was a big gain. It was enough to completely make up for all the divine power that everyone had consumed in the battle before. There was still a lot of surplus, which was enough to support the next few high-intensity battles. After all, the use of divine skills in each battle consumes a lot of divine power. Sufficient divine power means sufficient confidence. As for the extra pieces of divine crystal that cannot be distributed evenly, according to Black Flame's rules, they will be accumulated as public supplies for the two teams and kept by the captains, and will be distributed when needed in the future. No one is dissatisfied with this distribution. In addition to the divine crystals, there are also 172 bottles of battlefield regeneration pills that we can use. These pills are also distributed equally among everyone, and each person can get 15 bottles. The seized elixirs were also taken out, and each person was assigned 15 bottles. The excess elixirs were also used as public supplies for the team. The body regeneration pills used by these demigods are simple, clear, and direct in their effects. As long as one pill is taken, the body that has been damaged in the battle can quickly complete self-repair and regeneration, and it also has a powerful detoxification effect. As long as it is not a kind of poison that is extremely rare in the universe, this elixir is useful. Therefore, this elixir has become the most important material for the demigods on the battlefield. One elixir can basically completely solve the medical problems on the battlefield. If a random regeneration pill is placed somewhere else, it is probably a priceless divine treasure. The so-called living dead with flesh and white bones is not an exaggeration at all. An ordinary summoner will be poisoned by the pill if he eats such a pill. The potency of the medicine explodes and turns into dust. However, as long as you scrape a little powder from this pill, dissolve it with water, and take it slowly, that little powder can directly make an ordinary person live for 200 to 300 years. A strong body will prevent you from all kinds of diseases. There were 2 regeneration pills in each bottle. After getting them, everyone was smiling. Those guys from the Black Scale Demon clan deserve to die the most, but they are also fat enough. Killing such a squadron of Black Scale Demons will give you more loot than killing several squadrons of other races, Nan Heli. He smiled happily and put the regeneration pill away. The leader of the Black Scale Demon actually carries so many regeneration pills, it's really unexpected. A member of Qin Li's team sighed, it's a pity that the other Black Scale monsters were basically killed by the Void Divine Thunder, and basically nothing was left on them. If only the regeneration pills on those people could be left behind. We can get more. If it weren't for the Void Divine Thunder, I'm afraid they would be counting our trophies now. Makes sense. Apart from the regeneration pill, there are not many other magical weapons that have survived, only 8. Most of those magical weapons are weapons. There are also 2 pieces of self-defense equipment and 1 thing that can capture souls. The 2 teams have 4 pieces on each side. It's divided. As for what each team will do with it after they get it, it's up to each team to decide. These magic weapons were of little use to Xiaopingan, they were dispensable and he didn't care. The last trophy is these 13 world beads. Qin Li said, and those world beads were taken out, a total of 13, floating in the void, especially attractive, except for Dragon Fantasy, everyone can get one. I propose that Xuanhuan can get 3 world beads, everyone agrees or disagrees. Xiaopingan was stunned and said quickly, Captain Qin, you're welcome. Just like everyone else, 1 pill is enough. There are 2 pills left, 1 for each team. I agree, I'll give you 3 pieces of Dragon Fantasy. Mo Xiang glanced at Xiaopingan and said calmly. I agree. I agree. Agree. In the blink of an eye, everyone agreed, and Xiaopingan received the 3 world beads. Brother Long, don't refuse. You have contributed most to this great victory. Without your divination skills, we would all be in trouble. Speaking of which, everyone has benefited from you this time. If you want to refuse, that's a foreign policy, Zhao Gang from Qin Li's side said directly. Seeing everyone nodding and looking at him with a smile, Xiaopingan was silent for a few seconds and then nodded, in that case, I will be disrespectful. Qin Li laughed, Brother Long, you pick these world beads first. Xiaopingan shook his head, I have already occupied 3 world beads. If I pick them first, it would be a bit too much. Let's pick them first. The remaining 3 are mine. Seeing that Xiaopingan was so humble and not arrogant, everyone nodded secretly in their hearts. Seeing Xiaopingan's insistence, Mo Xiang said nothing more and said to everyone, in that case, let's follow the rules and let everyone choose one based on luck. As he spoke, Mo Xiang waved his hand and used the illusion barrier. After covering those boundary beads, when the illusion barrier is removed, all the boundary beads floating in the air have changed their positions. The glorious appearance of the boundary beads has been obscured by the illusion. They all look dark. Who chooses wherever you go, it depends on luck. Everyone also had no ink marks. Except for Xiaopingan and Mo Xiang, each of them waved and took a boundary bead. Only when those boundary beads came into everyone's hands did the illusion on the boundary beads disappear, revealing the original in the end. Only 4 world beads were left. Xuanhuan, you pick 3 first. I cast spells, so I can't pick the boundary beads. The last remaining boundary beads belong to me. Xiaopingan didn't say anything more. With a wave of his hand, 3 boundary beads came into his hands. The illusion on the boundary beads disappeared and their true colors were revealed. 1 boundary bead was according to the picture and the other was Wen Tianxiang. And there is also a divine power world bead, that is, the coachman has changed. Seeing the 3 world beads in Xiaopingan's hand, especially the Wen Tianxiang world bead, the faces of everyone around him changed slightly. Brother Xuanhuan, the spiritual crystals that can match this world bead have always been rare, and almost no one has seen it. Therefore, few people have been able to fuse this world bead. Once the fusion of this world bead fails, everyone will. It's a fatal situation, no one can be spared, so please don't fuse this world bead easily. Qin Li pointed to the Wentianxiang world bead and said to Xiaopingyan. Yes, brother, this world pearl is a very dangerous thing, brother, please don't be curious and try it, Nan he also quickly advised from the side. Xiaopingyan looked at the Wentianxiang boundary bead in his hand, then looked at the eyes of those around him staring at him, smiled slightly, and nodded, okay, thank you everyone for reminding me, I understand. You won't risk your life easily. After hearing what Xiaopingyan said, the people around him felt relieved. At this point, the spoils are basically distributed. Ahem, Brother Long, let me ask, our airship is flying in the southeast direction now. I don't know when it can stop. Where should it stop? Qi Ying, who was in charge of controlling the airship, asked. Shouldn't this issue be decided by Mo Ziyang and Qin Li through discussion? Why are you asking me? Xiaopingyan murmured in his heart, but looking at the expressions of the people around him, he found that everyone felt that they should make the decision on this issue. It seemed natural, as if what he said would not cause any problems. He was silent for a while, and then said, if you encounter someone along the way, there is a large piece of land, so let Fias who sneak under the land to recuperate for a few days. Everyone has been fighting continuously for the past few days and needs to recuperate. We will wait until everyone recovers. Chiaying nodded and seemed to loosen his gag. I feel relieved when you say that. Everyone seemed to be relieved. The craft was flying in a hidden state, with Qi Ying and another person on guard duty in the command module. The others went back to their rooms on the craft to rest. This flying boat also uses powerful space secrets inside. It looks like a small room from the outside. If you push the door and go in, you will find a large cave as wide as a gymnasium. The protection is very strong. This architectural style seems like a black scale demon. The clan prefers it, but it doesn't matter to Xiaopingyan and others, because these caves are easy to transform. They only need to dissolve the rocks and replastically cool them to get the environment they want. Xiaopingyan entered a cave and set up a formation. After summoning Xuanhuan to protect him, he took out the 3 boundary beads he had just obtained. He smiled slightly, and a drop of blood flew to the search for G according to the map boundary beads, and started integrate. Golden Summoner. Author, Z.Y. Hu. Chapter 1022. Is this the 1,000-mile horse you found? Bol looked at the 1,000-mile horse that Xiaopingyan, the silly son, had found, and was very angry. Of course, I searched for a 1,000-mile horse exactly according to the content of the Xiangma Sutra written by my father. I found that no other 1,000-mile horse could match the characteristics of the 1,000-mile horse that my father said more than this one, Xiaopingyan said seriously. He said, there is no way, his role at the moment is Bol's silly son. Bol asked him to take the book of horses and leave home to find Kolima. Xiaopingyan left home and walked around, found a big toad weighing 2 kilograms in the pool and brought it back. If this world bead is a divine power world bead, Xiaopingyan actually wants to see if it is a breakthrough fusion if he really finds a 1,000-mile horse, but the strange thing is that this world bead is not a divine power world bead. It is a summoning world bead that can summon things, which is fun, so Xiaopingyan thought about it again and again, and brought back an extra large toad according to the classic illusion left by Bol's silly son in history. Without the cooperation of the divine sense crystal, it is estimated that no one with a normal brain circuit could successfully fuse this world pearl. This is obviously a toad, but where is the 1,000-mile horse? Bol was so angry that he blew his beard. Does my horse sutra teach you to catch toads? I'm really pissed off. Xiaopingyan had a good time and pointed at the toad's head. Father, look, The Xiongmajing says that 1,000-mile horse has a son with a swollen sun and hoofs like tired koji. If you look at this thing, its forehead is high and its eyes are big and bright. The round shape is bright, and the forehooves are also big and plump. This is the one-of-a-kind 1,000-mile horse mentioned in my father's book. Bull laughed angrily at his silly son, but looking at his son's serious look, he could only say helplessly, "The 1,000-mile horse you found is too bouncy, I'm afraid it's not easy to ride. In addition to being able to jump, this thing can also be ridden in water and on the ground. It can go up mountains and seas." When Bull rolled his eyes at his son's remarks, Jiju's world shattered. The fusion was successful. Xiaoping'an opened his eyes. He couldn't help it. With a wave of his hand, he directly summoned everything that could be summoned from the world bead of Prestigiology. There was a flash of light and shadow, and a huge toad the size of a calf, with a dark yellow body, appeared in front of him. Gugwa. The toad stared at Xiaoping'an with its eyes as big as a light bulb, and screamed as soon as its mouth bulged. "This thing shouldn't be a mount, right?" Xiaoping'an also scratched his head. He stood up and circled around the toad. He didn't know what this toad could do. The key is that this toad consumes quite a lot of divine power, requiring a total of 810 points. Moreover, it is the only summoned object and has no attributes or skills. Even Xiaoping'an does not know what this thing is used for. "What can you do?" Xiaoping'an asked the toad. "Cuckoo." The toad screamed again, eye to eye with Xiaoping'an. "This thing. Forget it, just stay in Lingxiao City as a mascot." Xiaoping'an shook his head helplessly, and with a wave of his hand, Toad returned to Lingxiao City. It took less than 20 minutes to fuse the search for G according to the picture world bead. At this moment, Xiaoping'an still had 2 world beads in his hand. Then, Xiaoping'an began to fuse the divine world bead of Cheifu Gaiguo. A man can change his destiny by choosing the right wife. Xiaoping'an said softly while holding the boundary bead that had been revised by the coachman. Looking at the boundary bead, Xiaoping'an remembered that Emperor Wu of Jin had made the wrong choice. Xiaoping'an could only shake his head when comparing the two things about his daughter-in-law who ruined his country and his family. A humble coachman who married a good wife could help him cross the hierarchy from a coachman to a doctor and an official, but a high-ranking emperor could marry the wrong wife. Ruining thousands of miles of rivers and mountains and ruining one's country and family, so why reading history can be wise is this reason. The ancients concluded that marrying a wife should be a virtuous one. This virtuous man can become a powerful booster for a man's destiny. The story of Yanzi's coachman who changed a magic world pearl tells the story of Yanzi's coachman. It is a typical story about a family with a good wife. Yanzi was the prime minister of Qi, but Yanzi's coachman was a tall and strong man 8 feet tall. As the prime minister's coachman, this man was often in a state of arrogance and had an arrogant attitude when driving through the market. Unexpectedly, his wife saw her and she immediately wanted to divorce him and did not want to live with him. The driver was surprised and asked why, and his wife told him, "Yanzi is the prime minister of Qi state. He is a humble and dignified man. His reputation spreads throughout the countries. He is not proud at all. You are a man, but you are just Yanzi's coachman, but you are even more arrogant than Yanzi. How can you have any future, so I don't want to live with you anymore." The coachman was ashamed and deeply touched by his daughter-in-law's words. From then on, he changed his arrogant attitude and became humble and respectful. As time went by, Yanzi also discovered the change in his own coachman. The coachman explained the reason and knew that the coachman could listen to his wife and have the courage to change. So he recommended the coachman to become an official and a doctor, and the coachman's fate changed. In less than 10 minutes, the world bead was completely integrated, adding an additional 21 points to its upper limit of divine power. The only world pearl left is Wentianxiang. Although everyone had reminded Xiaoping'an before that this world bead was a bad thing and almost no one could successfully fuse it, So Xiaopinggan was told not to fuse it easily, but Xiaopinggan just laughed it off in his heart. He had fused this type of world bead before. It is necessary to put it to death before there is a possibility of life. If you want to survive, it is a situation of death. And the reason why this world bead is difficult to fuse is that it is not enough just not to be afraid of death. You must also do it before death. A feat that will go down in history. Xiaopinggan carefully recalled Wen Tianxiang's life, especially crossing Lingding Ocean left by Wen Tianxiang when he was escorted by the enemy across Lingding Ocean, and the Song of Righteousness left in the cell, which made people feel respected. After a while, Xiaopinggan, with a solemn face, began to fuse the world bead with blood. Before he even opened his eyes, Xiaopinggan could smell a thick, putrid, filthy, oppressive breath at the tip of his nose, as well as a shrill scream coming from his ears. After opening his eyes, he suddenly found that he was already in a dark cell. The cell was less than 3 meters wide and less than 10 meters long. There was a table, a bed, and pen, ink, and paper on the table. This is the cell where Wen Tianxiang was imprisoned. Although this cell doesn't look like much, compared with the surrounding cells, this is simply the presidential suite in the prison. There is a bed, bedding, desk, pen, ink, paper, and inkstone in this cell, which is already considered a presidential suite. It's a special treat. Screams came from another room next to the cell. Less than half a minute after Xiaopinggan opened his eyes, amidst the clattering sounds, he saw several UN soldiers guarding the prison dragging a man wearing a bloody man with disheveled handcuffs and anklets came out of the next room. The man was covered in blood, and his shackles rubbed on the ground, leaving a trail of blood on the ground. He made no sound. Xiaopinggan walked to the desk in the cell and saw a lot of paper and words on the desk. There were a few lines of words on the top piece of paper. My temples are drifting thousands of miles away, and the old sycamore trees in my hometown are autumn colors. The rivers and lakes are full of wild geese in the crescent moon, and the alleys of Yanbai farewell are empty in the setting sun. Why do fallen leaves keep flowing water? Yellow flowers without owners are more like the west wind. Looking at this poem, Xiaopinggan sighed secretly in his heart. This was double ninth festival written by Wen Tianxiang in prison. Because Kublai Khan admired Wen Tianxiang's talent and integrity very much, after Wupeling was defeated and captured, Kublai Khan always treated Wen Tianxiang very favorably. He was given pens, inks, paper, inkstones and other things in his cell. Xiaopinggan was looking at the poems and words left on the table. The head of the Bingma division cell had already arrived outside the room. He bent down and said in a slightly flattering voice outside the cell, "Ahem, Mr. Wen, Your Majesty the Duke of Ying Kingdom has been sent to see you. Wen Tianxiang has been imprisoned here for 2 years. During these 2 years, Kublai Khan sent people to persuade Wen Tianxiang to surrender every few days. The surrendered ministers and generals of the southern Song dynasty appeared here in an endless stream like a horse watching flowers. The Emperor His Majesty even promised Wen Tianxiang a high-ranking official position at the level of Prime Minister of the Yuan dynasty, so the head of the military and horse prison did not dare to neglect Wen Tianxiang at all. He cared more about Wen Tianxiang than his own father, because he knew that as long as he was locked up in the cell the man in the dungeon nodded. This man could immediately become the most powerful man in the metropolis. He could have official position, money, power, beauty, whatever he wanted. Countless people would fawn over this man. When the time comes, if this man one day, if you want to crush one of your own little military commanders to death, it will be like crushing an ant to death. Almost immediately after the cell leader finished speaking, a man with a thin face appeared outside the cell. The cell leader opened the door and let the man in. Xiaopinggan looked at the man who walked in, his mind spinning rapidly. Duke of Ying. There was only one Duke of Ying under Kublai Khan, and that was Emperor Gong of Song, who had been demoted to Yuan dynasty. Xiaopinggan looked at the man who came to persuade him to surrender with slightly complicated eyes. A mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and then he gave the man the courtesy of a monarch and a minister. Wen Tianxiang has met His Majesty. The man suddenly looked embarrassed, and even looked out of the prison with a little fear and guilt. He quickly waved his hand and stepped aside, not daring to accept the courtesy. Master Wen, there is no Your Majesty here. His Majesty sent him. I'm here to persuade Master Wen. Now the general trend of the world is clear. Your Majesty is talented and powerful, rich all over the world, the great Yuan is in the world, and all nations come to court. Why should Master Wen, why should you hold on to someone who is no longer in the court and remain unchanged? Woolen cloth. Xiaopinggan looked at the scene in the cell where the emperor persuaded his ministers to surrender, and sighed in his heart. Such a scene was more dramatic than the drama on the stage. Kublai Khan sent Emperor Gong of Song to persuade Wen Tianxiang, who was loyal to the Song dynasty, to persuade him to surrender. It's murder and heartbreaking. If Wen Tianxiang agrees, he will immediately become the object of Emperor Song Gong's fawning. Real history is sometimes so ironic and bizarre. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1023. Facing the arrogant Wen Tianxiang, Emperor Song Gong stayed in the cell for a while, going over and over the few words to persuade him to surrender. Afterwards, Xiaopingyan didn't bother to pay attention to him anymore, and he didn't bother to argue with him anymore. Just keeping his mouth shut and saying nothing, Emperor Song Gong stood in the cell for a while, but finally he couldn't stay any longer, so he had to sigh and said sadly, Master Wen's loyalty to the Song dynasty is known to the world. I am doing this for your own good, but, some things are past, I have let them go, so what else can you not let go of? It is said that those who know the current affairs are heroes. Mr. Wen, think about it. After speaking, Emperor Song Gong walked out of the cell. I send you off to Your Majesty. Xiaopingyan finally opened his eyes and said to Emperor Song Gong's back. When Emperor Song Gong heard the voice, his body trembled slightly, and he seemed to want to turn his head, but in the end he did not turn around to take a look, but quickly left the cell, his back a little lonely. Looking at Emperor Song Gong's leaving figure, Xiaopingyan also sighed in his heart. The kings of subjugated countries always want to be rich and contented, but some of them will end well. Seeing Duke Yang returning without success, the head of the Bing Macy cell stood waiting outside the door carefully like a hotel manager, and asked tentatively, Master Wen, it's lunch time now, I'll let you please bring some food for the adults. The summer has been very hot these past 2 days, so I ask someone to make some iced sour plum soup to relieve the heat. Wen Tianxiang is the most important person to His Majesty. If he does something bad in prison, his life will probably be over. Therefore, the head of the soldiers and horses cell is extremely careful about Wen Tianxiang. Torture. Wen Tianxiang suffered it before he was transferred to the prison of the military and horse division. Wen Tianxiang did not give in at all. Your Majesty saw that torture was useless and was afraid that it would really kill Wen Tianxiang, so he did not dare to use it again. Xiaopingyan turned to look at the man outside the cell. His heart moved and he asked softly, I am in prison every day. I don't know the sun and the moon. I have forgotten how long it has been since I came here. What year is this year? The man outside the cell was stunned for a moment, and then said, This is the 18th year of the Yuan dynasty. In the 18th year of the Yuan dynasty, that was 1281, and now it was the sweltering heat. Xiaopingyan's heart moved, and he finally understood that this was the time. Come here and help me sharpen my ink. I want to write something. Xiaopingyan said directly to the cell leader, just like he ordered the book boy around him. The prison boss did not dare to neglect and hurriedly came in to polish the ink. Whatever Wen Tianxiang wrote, His Majesty in the palace was the first reader. During these days, His Majesty read all the poems Wen Tianxiang wrote in prison and ordered them to be written down. What Wen Tianxiang writes must be sent to the palace as soon as possible. Under the gaze of the man outside the cell, Xiaopinggan walked to the desk and stood there for a full quarter of an hour as if in trance. Then he picked up the pen on the desk, dipped it in ink, and wrote 3 words on the paper. Song of Righteousness. After pausing for a moment, Xiaopinggan's words surged out like a mighty river with majestic momentum. I was imprisoned in the north courtyard, sitting in an earthen room. The room is 8 feet wide and 4 feet deep. The single leaf is low and small, the white space is short and narrow, dirty and dark. On this summer day, all kinds of air are in full bloom, it rains for 4 times and floats on the bed, then it is water vapor, when mud is applied for half a day, steaming and soaking, it is earthy, sometimes it is sunny and hot, and the wind is blocked in all directions. When the time is right, it is the air of the sun, when the eaves are overcast, it promotes inflammation, and when it is the time it is the fire air, when the warehouse is full of decay, and the odor is overwhelming, it is the air of the rice, when the shoulders are mixed, and there is fishy sweat and dirt, the time is the air of the people, it may be polluted, mutilated corpses, or rotting rats, and the bad gas will be mixed out, and it will be filthy gas. It's time to count the qi, and those who do it are rarely bad. But he was weak and looked down on him for 2 years. Fortunately, he was fine. It was because he was well nourished. However, what does Anzi support? Mencius said, I am good at cultivating my awe-inspiring qi. That qi has 7, and I have 1 qi. If 1 is against 7, why should I suffer? What is so great is the righteousness of heaven and earth, so make a song of righteousness. After writing this, Xiaopinggan stopped writing, closed his eyes, remained still, as calm as a mountain, and the breath in his body was accumulating bit by bit, as if he was brewing something. Just looking at the words written by Wen Tianxiang, the prison guard next to him was dumbfounded. His mouth felt dry and his body was trembling slightly. To be the prison guard here, he is naturally literate and educated. I never thought that in Wen Tianxiang's writings, this simple and dirty soldier's cell would have such majestic energy. The 4 seasons of heaven and earth, and the righteous way of the world, are all in this cell. It's just that the opening chapter is so impressive, but how will the following articles fill the world and be so majestic and brilliant? Seeing Xiaopinggan's pen hanging motionless and holding his breath, the cell leader's heart was pounding and sweat was already dripping from the tip of his nose, because he had a premonition that he would witness an eternally famous article appearing in front of him. The next second, Xiaopinggan opened his eyes were shining brightly, his writings were like the rising sun, and a mighty energy between heaven and earth surged out from his writings like a great river and ran through the ages, shaking the prison head next to him. I can't help myself. The heaven and earth have righteous energy, and are mixed and endowed with fluid shapes. Below are the rivers and mountains, and above are the sun and stars. To people, it is said to be vast, and it is as abundant as the sky. The imperial road should be King Ai, Han He Tuming Ting. When the time comes, we can see each other and draw pictures one by one. In Qi Taishi bamboo slips, in Jin dynasty Dong Hu's pen. Zhang Liangzui in Qin dynasty and Suwujia in Han dynasty. He was the head of General Yan and was bleeding for Jishi. They are Zhang Sui Yang's teeth and Yan Changshan's tongue. Or it is the Liao Dong hat, clearing the ice and snow. Or to show off one's teachings, ghosts and gods weep heroically. Or to cross the river and swallow Huji generously. Or for hitting the thief's wad, the head will be broken if it is turned upside down. This is the majestic qi that will last forever. When it penetrates the sun and moon, life and death will be settled. The earth depends on it to stand, and the sky pillar depends on it. The 3 cardinal principles are actually life-related, and morality is the root. I'm sorry to hear that Yangju is really weak. The prisoners of Chu wore their crowns and sent them to Kyang Bay in chariots. The tripod wok is as sweet as glutinous rice, but you can't get it if you ask for it. There is a ghost fire in the underworld, and it is dark when the spring courtyard is closed. The oxen eats the same soap, the chicken roosts and the phoenix eats. Once there is fog and dew, it becomes barren in the ditch. In this case, no matter how cold or hot it is, all kinds of diseases will be easy to overcome. Alas, Zhu La Chain, for my peaceful country. How could he not be clever? Yin and yang cannot be thieved. Looking up at this stubborn existence, I look up at the white floating clouds. My heart is filled with sadness, and the sky is full of sorrow. The day of the philosopher is far away, and the punishment is in the past. The wind eaves display books for reading, and the ancient roads illuminate their colors. After writing Song of Righteousness, Xiaopinggan wrote on the ground and breathed a long sigh of relief. However, the cell leader next to him was already distracted and dumbfounded. The words on the paper were like the sun and moon in the eyes of the cell leader. Like hills, stretching across the past and present, they seemed to be made of the bones and blood of thousands of heroic souls. Make his soul tremble. At night, the Song of Righteousness written by Wen Tianxiang during the day was already placed on Kublai Khan's desk in the palace. Kublai Khan was not tall, but he was extremely strong. He had a broad face with a thick beard. He had a unique heroic atmosphere of the Mongols, but his slender eyes were particularly energetic and calm. The heaven and earth have righteousness, and they are mixed and endowed with manifolds. Below are the rivers and mountains, and above are the sun and stars. To people, it is said to be vast, so vast that it fills the sky. Kublai Khan looked at the words on the paper, and he also felt a little confused. Lost in thought, he let out a long sigh and turned to look at the person standing next to him. It's really hard to imagine that a southerner's writing can be so heroic and generous. Looking at his writing, I thought in a daze that this person was also blessed by the eternal God. A talented hero who grew up on the grassland. By the way, what is the result of persuading surrender today? We have sent the Duke of Ying, but Wen Tianxiang still refuses to surrender, and Wen Tianxiang keeps calling that person Your Majesty. It is really treasonous. Everyone says that the northern prime minister is better than Ye Luchukai, and the southern prime minister is worse than Wen Tianxiang. I think Ye Luchukai is not as good as Wen Tianxiang. The Yuan dynasty, can take over the southern dynasty only because the emperor of the southern dynasty is cowardly and the traitors are so prevalent in the court that it just makes it difficult for talents like Wen Tianxiang to realize their ambitions. Such talents are still loyal to their fallen country and monarch. If he can be so loyal to me and my Yuan dynasty, why worry about my Yuan dynasty failing to prosper? Kublai Khan sighed, then his face straightened, and he continued to order, continue to ask people to persuade Wen Tianxiang to surrender. If anyone can persuade this person to surrender, it will be a great achievement, and I will reward you heavily. Yes. In the next 2 years, Xiaopingyan watched in prison as if he were watching the people who surrendered to Dayuan come to persuade him to surrender. These people who persuaded him to surrender were Wen Tianxiang's subordinates and colleagues in the past. Now after they surrendered to Dayuan, they were also, in addition to these people, officials from the Yuan dynasty were sent to persuade Wen Tianxiang to surrender. They even sent Wen Tianxiang a letter from Wen Tianxiang's daughter to persuade him to surrender. Xiaopingyan was unmoved. Until one day 2 years later, the head of the cell suddenly asked a group of men to bathe and change Xiaopingyan. After taking care of it, in the evening, a group of people came to the cell, took Xiaopingyan out of the cell, and came directly arriving at the palace. In the palace, Xiaopingyan saw Kublai Khan and just bowed slightly. The guards in the palace asked Xiaopingyan to kneel down. Xiaopingyan did not kneel down. He stood in the main hall. The guards in the palace were furious. Several people came up and pushed Xiaopingyan to his knees. Kublai Khan suddenly waved his hand and asked Xiaopingyan to kneel down. Guards, go down. Kublai Khan looked at Xiaopingyan with complicated eyes and said in a deep voice, Our great UN territory extends from the North Pole in the north to the South China Sea in the south. It is dozens of times larger than that of the Southern Dynasty. It is an empire that has never been seen in the world. My achievements are also achieved by Emperor Qin and Han Dynasty. Why not? My iron cavalry can conquer all races and command the world, and countless emperors will kneel on the ground and kowtow to me when they see me. Is it so difficult to accept my surrender in your eyes? All the emperors who are loyal to me have surrendered to me. Why don't you surrender to me? As long as you surrender to me today and be loyal to me, you can wear this suit and wear this official seal. You will be the Prime Minister of the UN Empire. You will be a very human minister, rich in the world, and all nations. When the Lord sees you, he will kneel on the ground, and when the Mongol warriors who conquer the world see you, they will also bow their heads and salute you. Aren't you satisfied with this? While Kublai Khan was speaking, several eunuchs had already walked out with their waists spent and carrying things. In their hands, those eunuchs had the official uniforms and seals of the prime ministers of the UN dynasty. The king can surrender, but the country cannot surrender. The Zhao family can surrender, but the Han family cannot surrender. Xiaopinggan's quiet voice boomed in the hall. Xiaopinggan looked at Kublai Khan and said calmly, "Today I see your majesty, only I want to die. I want to let the world know that my Chinese people have not surrendered, and my Han family has not surrendered. I hope your majesty will do it." Xiaopinggan looked at the palace and smiled at Kublai Khan. "Your majesty wants to surrender me because your majesty, you know, you can conquer the world immediately, but you cannot rule the world immediately. In the palace where your majesty is today, it won't be long before I, the son of China, will stand here again and rule the world, and I, the son of China, will regain the inheritance of our ancestors." After rejecting the official position of prime minister promised by Kublai Khan, Wen Tianxiang died calmly. In the room, Xiaopinggan's light cocoon shattered, and the upper limit of the secret mandala's divine power increased by a full 300 points. The mountain of golden characters in the temple emits thousands of golden light, and countless golden characters float in the hall, resonating with all the statues in the hall. Under the light of those golden words, the divine skills and talismans in Xiaopinggan's heart also vibrated. A divine skill talisman directly merged with Xiaopinggan again. Golden Summoner. Author, Zyu. Chapter 1024. In the temple of the secret mandala, Xiaopinggan stood in the temple, looking at the huge golden words in the righteousness songs floating on the temple, and his whole person was a little shocked. The mountain of golden words, at this moment, seemed to be, as if activated. Under Xiaopinggan's observation, he discovered that the words in the Genki song would have completely different effects when they resonated with the sculptures in the hall. Zhongliang's world pearl Xiaopinggan has been fused, and there are more than one. Among the sculptures in the hall, there is an iron statue of Zhongliang who avenged his country and found a strong man to ambush Qin Shi Huang's patrol in Bolangzhe. The sculpture, that sculpture bloomed with a golden light and shone on the 5 words in Qin Zhongliangzi floating in the righteous song above the temple. The brilliance of the two complemented each other, blooming a golden purple flame, like the sun and the moon rising into the sky, extremely dazzling. In addition to this sculpture, there is also a statue of Suwu in the main hall. Suwu's boundary bead Xiaopinggan has also been fused, so the statue of Suwu resonates with the 5 words on the Suwu festival of the Han dynasty in the Song of Righteousness. The light is brilliant. Other sculptures that resonate with the words in the Song of Righteousness include Zhuliang's Shishi Biao and Duan Xiaoxi's sculptures that resonate with the words in the Song of Righteousness. The paragraph that resonates with Zhuliang's "The Demonstration of the Master" is, perhaps for the demonstration of the demonstration, ghosts and gods cry heroically, and the paragraph that resonates with Duan Xiaoxi is perhaps for striking the thief's what, the head will be erect and broken. These are all fusions of Xiaopinggan's The Boundary Pearl. In addition to these resonant words, Xiaopinggan discovered that although there are some words in the Genki song that are also glowing, The light is not on the same level as these sculpturally resonant words. It is light red and appears slightly dim. Not so glorious. The slightly darker text is in Qi Taishi Jian, in Jin Donghu Bai, for General Yan's head, for Ji Shizhong's blood, for Zhang Sui Yang's teeth, for Yan Changshan's tongue, or for Liao Dong hat, Qing Cao Li Bing Xiu, and maybe to cross the river, swallow Hu Ji generously. To others, this situation might be a bit confusing, but Xiaopinggan saw the mystery contained in it at a glance. Xiaopinggan's eyes flashed as he stared at the words, "There are 12 hidden in the Song of Righteousness, the illusions of historical figures. I only fused the 4 world beads of 4 of them, so there are only 4 resonant words. If I completely fused the 8 world beads of the remaining 8 people, I don't know how this righteous song will be. What changes?" Xiaopinggan couldn't help but feel excited at this moment, because this was the first time he encountered such a world bead. Xiaopinggan vaguely felt that the Song of Righteousness in this world bead was by no means an ordinary magic world bead. This world bead definitely contains something. It's a big secret, but he doesn't know the secret yet. It may require him to find and fuse the remaining 8 world beads in the illusions of the Genki song before it will be revealed. Not to mention anything else, Xiaopinggan has already received huge benefits at this moment. The talisman that has just been fused with the ancient god's heart in his body is the talisman that draws the earth as a prison. Because of this world bead, he has now mastered the divine skill of void confinement. Unexpectedly, the world pearl fused with Wen Tianxiang actually allowed him to master the divine skills. Xiaopinggan didn't know whether this divine skill was related to Wen Tianxiang's experience of being imprisoned, but this possibility existed. Therefore, Xiaopinggan had a vague hunch that if he integrated the remaining 8 world beads from the illusions mentioned in the Genki song, this world bead would give him an even bigger surprise. "I didn't expect that you would also fuse this world pearl." Yes, this is the spirit of writing. At some point, Kang Ji, who had not seen each other for a long time, appeared in the main hall. Kang Ji looked at the people in the main hall. There are words floating in the middle, and a smile appears on the face. Seeing Kang Ji appear, Xiaopinggan was shocked and quickly stepped forward to salute. "Senior, I wonder how the Song of Righteousness will change if I fuse it with other world beads." "Haha, you will know when the time comes. It depends on whether you have the blessing and ability," Kang Ji said haha and stretched. "Oh, I have been busy teaching people to write these days, so it's time to take a rest. Today you have integrated this world pearl, and you can find a capable helper. Don't disturb me if you have nothing to do in the future." As he spoke, Kang Ji walked towards the mountain of golden words. When Kang Ji walked in, a large golden hole suddenly opened in the mountain of words, just like a cave of an immortal. Kang Ji walked directly into the big cave, and the mountain of golden words returned to its original state. Xiaopinggan didn't expect that the mountain of golden words would change like this. He stood blankly for a few seconds before he remembered Kang Ji's words, and then his eyes fell on Wen Tianxiang's white jade statue in the main hall. Wen Tianxiang on the statue, wearing the official uniform of the Prime Minister of the Song Dynasty, holding a book in his hand, he stood on the bow of the ship, looking majestic. The whole statue shone brightly, just like a real person. This statue shows that it can be summoned. Xiaopinggan patted his forehead. At this moment, Lingxiao City is developing at a rapid pace. It needs someone to take charge of the overall situation of the city and plan the development of various undertakings in the city. If people like Wen Tianxiang can be summoned, Lingxiao City will be stable. Thinking in his heart, Xiaopinggan waved his hand, and a divine power was injected from the sky caisson of the temple into Wen Tianxiang's sculpture. Wen Tianxiang's statue began to glow. A few seconds later, Wen Tianxiang walked out of the statue and came to Xiaopinggan. In front of Pinggan, he saluted Xiaopinggan. "I have met the Lord. No need to be polite, from now on you will be the Prime Minister of my Kingdom of God, and I will leave everything to you," Xiaopinggan said, and with a move of his hand, he condensed the seal of the Prime Minister and handed it to Wen Tianxiang. His kingdom of God cannot only have Lingxiao City in the future. In fact, the current Lingxiao City already seems a bit lonely to Xiaopinggan's kingdom of God. Kui Hao is now the city lord of Lingxiao City. If other cities are built, his kingdom of God we need a talented person who can have an overview of the overall situation to preside over it. Now that we can invite the great master Wen Tianxiang, just leave this matter to him. I wonder what the name of the Lord's kingdom is, Wen Tianxiang asked. Xiaopinggan scratched his head. Well, I haven't chosen the name of the kingdom of God yet. There is only one city in the kingdom of God, Lingxiao City. Let's talk about the name of the country after the population and cities of the kingdom of God increase. Understood. Wen Tianxiang took the Prime Minister's seal and said nothing more. He just saluted Xiaopinggan and then walked out of the temple. When Xiaopinggan saw Wen Tianxiang walking out of the temple, he just waved to a group of Templar warriors patrolling outside the temple. The group of Templar warriors followed him and became his subordinates, surrounding him. Leave here, this is the power of the seal. Once Xiaopinggan recognizes Wen Tianxiang's identity, all the characters in the secret mandala will feel the majesty and authority of the person holding the seal. This Lingxiao city is getting more and more interesting. Han Xian is the general, Xuanhuan is the vanguard, and Wen Tianxiang is the prime minister. I wonder what other interesting people will join in the future? After looking at the words floating in the temple, Xiaopinggan also left the temple. If you want to unlock the secret of this righteous song, you can only take your time. After all, whether you can get those world beads depends on luck. In Fiazhu's room, Xiaopinggan, who was sitting cross-legged, finally opened his eyes with a smile on his face. Void confinement, this divine skill is interesting. I didn't expect that I have mastered 2 divine skills in just a short time. Moziang they know, but they don't know if they will be frightened. According to Black Flame's standards, a person who has mastered 3 divine skills is already a first-rate figure among the demigods and can be the squad leader of Black Flame. It took less than half a day for Xiaopinggan to fuse the 3 world beads. At this moment, everyone on the flying boat was still resting and recovering in their respective rooms. After waking up, Xiaopinggan did not leave the room again. Instead, he took out a broken array disc and some materials for refining the machine puppet from his warehouse, and began to play with it. Fiazhu has been hiding here for 15 days, half a month. During these 15 days, the 2 teams were resting and recovering. For others, the 2 battles they just experienced were not easy. Naturally, it takes a while to recover. Half a month is equivalent to everyone recovering half of their divine power. Those who are physically injured have almost recovered, and the experience gained from the 2 battles has been almost digested. 15 days later, a wave of divine power summoned him sounded outside Xiaopinggan's door. Xiaopinggan put away the things in his hands, walked out of the door, and came to the hall of the Fiazhu command cabin. Everyone was very energetic. When they saw Xiaopinggan appeared, everyone looked over. Ahem, can everyone please stop looking at me like this? I don't have any flowers on my face. Xiaopinggan rubbed his face and said helplessly. There is something I want to announce. Moziang and Qin Li exchanged glances. Both of their eyes were a bit strange and cunning. Finally, Moziang spoke, between our previous achievements and everyone's cooperation, okay, Captain Qin and I discussed it. From today on, our 2 teams will temporarily work together to form a joint action team. The tasks of the joint action team will be assigned by me, Qin Li, after discussion. It doesn't matter who leads whom. We are all the same, we are all comrades and brothers. In addition, our joint team has decided to ask Long Huan to be the strategist of our team and give everyone advice. Do you have any opinions? These 2 guys must have discussed it a long time ago. No wonder the eyes of these 2 guys were so weird just now. They have determined themselves. The so-called strategist is to use divination to provide protection for everyone at any time. Xiaopinggan was slightly stunned. Before he could raise any objections, everyone else had already applauded. They all looked at Xiaopinggan and Qin Li's team with smiles. They seemed to be relieved. Everyone smiled sincerely, and their smiles were particularly bright. In this way, Xiaopinggan suddenly became the military advisor of this joint team. "Commander, where are we going now?" Qin Li licked his lips and asked. Golden Summoner. Author, Zy Hu. Chapter 1025. 2 months later. Rumble. In an airspace with huge mountains floating everywhere, fierce battles were continuing. The terrifying power erupted from the divine skills bloomed with colorful brilliance, crushing mountain rocks within hundreds of kilometers. This was an ambush battle. The one-party ambush was Xiaopinggan and his team. There were 11 people, divided into 6 groups, besieging their target from all directions. As for the nearby party, there were only 4 people, 3 human summoners and an orc demigod of a non-human race. The strength comparison between demigods of the same rank is close to 3-1. For the demigods who dominate the demon side, there is almost no possibility of a comeback. Moreover, one side has been planning for a long time, and the other side is frightened and fell into an ambush. He was injured in a matter of seconds, so as soon as the battle began, the outcome was almost certain. In the void, Mo Xiang's shattered illusion is like a huge black ball covering the airspace within a radius of 200 to 300 kilometers. The black ball has no light and is so dark that it makes people palpitate. Within the realm of shattered illusion, it directly surrounds the 2 opponents. The powerful demigod, outside the realm of shattered illusion, could only faintly hear the loud noise coming from the realm of shattered illusion. The huge illusion looked like a balloon being kneaded by a child from time to time, with dents here and bulges there. It changes shape from time to time. Outside the destroyed illusion, Qin Li led 6 people to surround the 2 demigod summoners. He looked at the waves of unending divine skill attacks coming in like a tidal wave. The 2 demigod summoners were seriously injured. He soon fell into despair. Qin Li's fiery red forbidden war armor drew a blurry afterimage in the sky like a meteor. The spear in his hand turned into a 1,000-meter-long blood-red dragon with his roar, piercing through the companions around him. After capturing the opponent's divine skill, the spear in his hand seized the opportunity to attack in less than 1,000th of a second, blasting directly through the opponent's chest and blasting the opponent into pieces. A lot of things exploded in the void, and Qin Li took them all away with a wave of his hand. After killing an enemy, Qin Li's side immediately gained the strength of a 3-man team. The numerical advantage here was even more obvious. The battlefield already showed an overwhelming advantage in strength. Outside of the destroyed illusion, there was another person under siege. The guy, seeing his companion being killed, was so frightened that he was vomiting blood and frantically using his divine skills to fight his way out of the siege of others. However, there were also 3 people besieging that guy. 3 people joined forces, 2 mastered the divine skills, and 1 mastered the combined magic and martial arts combat skills. They were also as stable as Mount Tai, and they directly blocked all the divine skills that the man was madly outputting. The guy's desperate attack had no effect at all except smashing a few peaks 100 miles away. Qin Li, who succeeded in killing an enemy with 1 blow, did not hesitate for half a second. He shouted to his companions, "Scar, Wei, you go to support Zhao Gang and the others, and I will support Mo Xiang and the others." Good. The 3 people separated in the air, and together with the other 2 people fighting together, they rushed towards the guy who was about to collapse, while Qin Li rushed directly towards Mo Xiang's destroyed illusion. In the destroyed illusion, Mo Xiang and the others were fighting 5 against 2. It was a bit difficult, so Mo Xiang decided to go to support in person. As for the battle outside, it would be damned if that guy could break out from the encirclement of 5 people. As soon as Qin Li, who was holding a spear, rushed into the destroyed illusion. He saw in the void in front of him a huge iron fist like a mountain, turning a black man whose body had become more than 10,000 meters tall, with blood-red eyes and a mouth full of fangs. The giant ape's skin and flesh were ripped open by the blast, its bones were broken, and its muscles were broken, and it flew backwards while vomiting blood. That giant ape is the orc demigod who dominates the demon god's side, and it has been beaten into oblivion. Such a powerful iron fist is exactly the divine skill of Brother Long, the Emperor's divine fist. Come, come again. Xiaopinggan's voice roared in the void. As the voice sounded, Xiaopinggan, who was less than 50 kilometers away from the giant ape, rushed towards the giant ape that was blown away again. The man exudes a brave and fearless temperament. With a wave of his hand, a huge palm appears across time and space and a distance of dozens of kilometers to appear on the path of the giant ape flying upside down. With a slap, like swatting a fly, the giant ape is swatted away. Slap again. The 10,000-meter tall body of the giant ape was shrinking rapidly, becoming only more than 7,000 meters tall in the blink of an eye. This meant that the body of the giant ape was approaching the edge of collapse, and to make matters worse, the illusion was shattered. Among them, thousands of swords suddenly appeared, and the thousands of swords turned into countless streams of light, and directly hit the giant ape's head. This was Mo Xiang's attack in the illusion. The giant ape that suffered Mo Xiang's blow had shrunk to a height of more than 2,000 meters. The illusion was like a quagmire, slowing down the giant ape's movements, making it difficult for the giant ape to move forward. Qin Li was about to replenish his gun and fired. In 1 second, Xiaopinggan's iron fist and the countless rays of light in Nanhe's hands, like flowers scattered by a goddess, penetrated the body of the giant ape and turned the giant ape into dust. Suddenly there was only one struggling demigod summoner left in the shattered illusion. Just like the summoner outside, the last remaining guy saw 6 opponents rushing towards him. He also despaired and began the final battle. The struggle. A minute later, the last enemy in the shattered illusion turned into dust. Mo Xiang withdrew from the shattered illusion, just in time to see the last enemy outside being bombarded by 3 divine skills and shattered into pieces. In just a few seconds, everyone skillfully cleaned up the battlefield in an instant, and then evacuated from here in a well-trained manner. Half an hour later, everyone had gathered in the flying boat again, laughing heartily. The flying boat was quickly leaving the battlefield. It's great, this time I easily beheaded a few of the opponent's dogs. Nanhe laughed loudly and patted Xiaopinggan's shoulder heavily with his hand. I feel like this is fighting. Every time we are bullied. There are few people, I like. Nanhe's words reached everyone's heart. This kind of ambush and annihilation battle with the majority bullying the minority was so exciting. Compared with the current battle, the previous battles were like a group of reckless men in a dark room with their eyes closed. It's like cutting each other with swords and fighting desperately. Every battle is either an encounter, a storm attack or a sniper evacuation battle. It's impossible to set up an ambush, and the number and strength of the opponents encountered in an encounter is completely a matter of luck. If you are lucky, you can fight with more and less. If you are not lucky, you can only be chased and beaten. Now, most of the time, they are ambushes. Even in encounters, the number of enemies will be far less than the number of people here. In a battle with the largest number of enemies, there were only 6 opponents. This is Xiaopinggan's principle. Enemies with more than 6 people will not be touched here. If you want to touch them, you must touch the ones that can resolve the battle in the shortest time. Brother Long's divination skills are simply astonishing and unpredictable. Each time, they can choose to start the battle at a place and time where they have an absolute advantage. After fighting again and again, Xiaopinggan has become the absolute core figure in this team. This is already the 4th battle this month. We have won a great victory again. Let's find a place to rest for a while. What do the military advisors think? Qin Li also had a smile on his face as he spoke. While looking at Xiaopinggan, his eyes were asking for Xiaopinggan's opinion. Unknowingly, Xiaopinggan's opinion has become the future that everyone in this joint action team must face with all their energy. Yes, it's time to take a rest. Xiaopinggan nodded lightly, his face turning serious. During this period, we have cleared out many enemy teams in this area, creating a vacuum of enemy power in this area. Divination: the result is that we have been targeted by a powerful opponent, and the danger is approaching us. Now we turn to the northwest, non-stop all the way, and the flying boat will fly for 7 consecutive days to avoid being surrounded. As Xiaopinggan spoke, the person controlling the flying boat had already turned the flying boat in one direction and controlled the flying boat according to Xiaopinggan's instructions. In 1 hour and 15 minutes, we still need to release a decoy puppet in the southwest direction of the airship's evacuation path. Let me do it, I still have a few decoy puppets here that I haven't used. Mo Xiang said, having already arrived at Fiazhu's spell release port, and began to count the time, preparing to release what Xiaopinggan said to the outside of the decoy golem, and then have the decoy golem escape toward the southwest. When to release the bait puppet and where to release the bait puppet will affect the results of the divination later, and facts have proven that as long as you follow Xiaopinggan's instructions, everything will be under control. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1026. Just over 2 hours after Xiaopinggan and the others left the battlefield, a faint red light suddenly emitted from a certain space on the battlefield. A few seconds after the red light appeared, it began to grow in size and turned into a circle several meters high. Then, 2 men wearing forbidden armor and terrifying aura walked out of the red circular portal. One of these 2 people is more than 3 meters tall. The forbidden armor on his body is covered with bloody dark lines. The helmet of the armor has a pair of long curved horns. There is a flame-shaped secret pattern between the eyebrows, like an eye. Under the flame-shaped secret pattern, there is a pair of bloodthirsty and cruel eyes. What is even weirder is that behind this man's head, a faint blood-colored aperture has appeared. It looks very special, as if it's sacred, yet terrifying, with unspeakable power. The other person, although also wearing a taboo armor, looks like a woman from a third glance. She wears a pure black snake face mask on her face. Like the man next to her, this woman also has a faint mask on the back of her head. Bloody aperture. Both of them possess a power that is not found in ordinary demigods. The man's sharp eyes scanned the airspace here inch by inch. After a few seconds, he slowly nodded and said in a hoarse and harsh voice, "This is it. The wave energy of the divine skill has not completely disappeared. I have already feeling the dissipation of the demon's blood here, it should be them, they just finished the battle." The woman wearing a snake mask next to her chuckled, "I haven't hunted these fresh prey for a long time. I have almost forgotten what their blood and internal organs taste like. They must not have gone far yet. Judging from the remaining fluctuating aura of the divine skill, it shouldn't have gone far." The man nodded. "Let's make sure. If they are ordinary characters, there is no need to waste time. We only have one chance to take action. If we don't catch them, we will be exposed, and then those nasty guys will definitely be able to smell our scent." The man nodded, and the next second, the flame pattern between his eyebrows turned into an open eye, and a ray of light shot out from the eye between his eyebrows, illuminating the battlefield and the void of the entire battlefield. In an instant, it was like a stone being thrown into a calm lake, causing ripples in circles. The light and shadow in the void were twisting. Everything was being reorganized, just like time went back. Just a moment later, the scene of the battlefield reappeared here. In the void, the 4 powerful demigods who dominate the demon god side are invisible and flying in the void. Then, the surprise attack comes instantly. Thousands of lightsabers sweep across hundreds of kilometers of airspace like raindrops. The four dominant demon gods, the figures of the powerful demigods on one side, were exposed, and then, Mo Xiang's shattered illusion opened like a giant net, trapping two of the four people in an instant. Then, 11 versus 4, the ambush battle began. Xiaopinggan and other four people rushed into Mo Xiang's shattered illusion. Qin Li led the other 5 people in the airspace outside the illusion and divided them into 2 groups to hunt the other 2 targets in an orderly manner. The battle lasted for less than 20 minutes, and 4 people on the demon god's side were killed. Afterwards, Xiaopingyan and the others quickly evacuated the battlefield. The next second, the light and shadow in the void dissipated and returned to their current appearance. However, there were still 11 faint illusory shadows remaining in the void, flying in the direction where Xiaopingyan and the others left. It's them. They've been invisible during this period and have killed many of our teams. Hee, I caught them again. The man gritted his teeth and said with a flash of light, he was already heading towards the 11 illusory shadows. Flying over, like a beast biting its prey, a cruel smile appeared on his face. Watch where they run this time, I will tear them apart bit by bit. Yes, they were the ones who were on the battlefield last time. The woman also flew over, but she was still a little confused. I'm very surprised that there is no strong person who can condense the divine fire among them. Why can they succeed in ambush repeatedly, every time they all ended the battle with an overwhelming advantage on the battlefield they chose? If a strong man with concentrated divine fire takes action, we should be able to feel it. I don't know, maybe some of them have some weird spiritual skills that we don't know about, so they can succeed again and again. They even killed the team of the Black Scale Demon Tulmasa and destroyed one of ours. An important mine, otherwise, the fortress would not have ordered us to take action. We must find them and kill them. I hope it's the ability of a divine skill. If there is any ancient artifact that can be engraved over there and it can lock our team, it will be troublesome. This is what the fortress is worried about. He, just find them, taste their brains and blood, and you'll know. Led by the 11 illusory lights and shadows, the 2 people moved quickly along the road Xiaopingyan and the others left. Not long after, they saw the 11 illusory lights and shadows boarding the flying boat, and then they caught up with the flying boat, flying all the way to the southwest. 7 days later, on the flying boat in the Black Dragon Domain's demonic sky space, Mo Xiang, Qin Li, Xiaopingyan, Nanhe and others gathered again in the command cabin. After 7 days of rest, everyone's combat power has recovered a lot, and everyone is full of energy and gearing up. Everyone watched with a little awe as Xiaopingyan summoned the mysterious performance building again. Please also ask the saints in the building to give me some advice. As Xiaopingyan bowed respectfully to the Yandao building, a note fell from the attic again and landed on Xiaopingyan's hand, and then the Yandao building disappeared. In normal times, Xiaopingyan doesn't have to summon the performance building every time for divination, but this time everyone can't help but want to see this mysterious performance building in person, as if seeing the performance building can bring blessings. Everyone seemed to bring good luck to everyone, so Xiaopingyan summoned the performance hall again for divination. The 10 heads nearby all gathered together to see what the result of this divination would be. The ghost lingers, the divine fire is evil, the dragon has regrets, avoid it and it will be good luck. Seeing these 16 words, the faces of the people around him all changed. Several people took a slight breath, and Xiaopingyan also narrowed his eyes and his expression became serious. Does this divination mean that we are being targeted and we are not completely out of the crisis yet? Qin Li asked solemnly. The divine fire is evil. Could it be that the person who is targeting us this time is a powerful person of the first level of the god? Mo Xiang's expression changed. If a strong demigod wants to become a god, he must ignite the divine fire of the Great Avenue, and the ignition of the divine fire of the Great Avenue does not happen overnight. Among the strong demigods, As the strong demigods master more spiritual skills, the secret mandala and temple, the fire of the divine fire in them, may be condensed bit by bit. These strong men who have begun to condense the divine fire have already stepped into the threshold of becoming gods. Their bodies and abilities in all aspects have gradually become deified, and their strength has been gradually transformed. Powerful and terrifying, a powerful demigod who has begun to condense divine fire, known as the God Lord, can easily destroy a special team. Everyone, it is estimated that our previous achievements were too outstanding and have attracted the attention of the enemy. I am afraid that this time we will avoid their sharpness and return to the base to rest immediately. If we continue with the previous strategy, it will be a sign of regret. If we go too far, we will put ourselves in danger. The note in Xiaoping's hand turned into a flame and dissipated. Xiaoping looked at everyone and suggested. Everyone looked at each other. Being targeted by the perverts who started to gather the divine fire made everyone feel a little scared. If they said they were not afraid, that would be a lie, because the strength of both sides lies here. The military merits we have gained during this period are enough for us to return to the base and rest for a long time. I agree to return to the base, Mo Xiang was the first to say. Well, in addition to military achievements, we have also accumulated a lot of trophies. If something happens to us, the losses will be even greater, and it will only increase the enemy's arrogance. I also agree that everyone should return to the base to rest and improve their strength. Qin Li also nodded and said. Hearing that the two captains agreed, everyone secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Then return to base. Golden Summoner. Author, Zyu. Chapter 1027. The teleportation array connecting the Black Dragon Territory Fortress Group in Wolong Territory is located on a huge island in the northeast of Wolong Territory. This island covers an area of more than 100 kilometers and is long and narrow, like a warship. It is named Warship Island and is located in Wolong Territory, in the center of the beautiful Changbo Lake. Every day, there is an endless stream of demigods coming and going on Battleship Island. There is a huge amount of personnel and material exchanges on both sides. Therefore, this Battleship Island is a bit like a train station in a war zone. A large number of people wearing taboos, strong warriors in armor, flew from all directions and went to the Black Dragon domain to participate in battles or perform various tasks. People who returned from the Black Dragon domain also took off in large numbers from the island and flew around. There are 210 teleportation platforms on the island. Among these teleportation platforms, the even-numbered teleportation platforms go from here to the Black Dragon Domain Fortress Group, while the odd-numbered teleportation platforms return here from the Black Dragon Domain. Different teleportation platforms, they are arranged on both sides of Battleship Island, just like the platforms on a station, constantly welcoming people and sending them off. Today, the morning in Wolong Territory was sunny and bright, and sand gulls were gathering in the Changbo Lake. On the teleportation platform numbered 115 on Warship Island, as a burst of light lit up, the figures of 11 people gradually emerged from the light. A few seconds later, when the light from the teleportation platform dissipated, Xiaoping and the others were already standing on the teleportation platform. 11 people, many of them. After everyone decided to leave the war zone and return to the base, Xiaoping chose a return route. Everyone took a flying boat and hid along the way. Finally, they returned to the fortress group in the Black Dragon territory without any danger. In the fortress group, after the Black Flame military headquarters completed the reporting and military merit review, everyone returned to the Wolong territory from the fortress group. I finally came back and saw the sun again. As long as I stayed in the Black Dragon territory for a long time, I almost forgot what the sun looked like. Mo Xiang squinted his eyes and looked up at the bright sky above his head, and sighed. In one breath, I can take a good rest this time. Yeah, now that we're out of that hellish place, we can relax a bit. Qin Li also looked at the environment here, with a smile on his face and a bold wave of his hand, Let's all get together and relax in the evening. It's at Viang Tower, I'm treating guests, I really miss the wine at Viang Tower. He, I still remember the expression on the face of the guy who reviewed our military merits when he saw our military merit points and the number of captured forbidden armors. It felt so good. Nan, he smiled while stroking his bald head. He just laughed twice. He realized that everyone was staring at him, and he was shocked. The hearty laughter turned into dry laughter. Finally, he awkwardly moved the corners of his mouth, glanced at Xiaopinggan quietly, and quickly stopped talking. According to the military regulations on the battlefield, if Team 179 of the Black Flame Department wants to return to the fortress from the Black Dragon territory to repair, at least one of two conditions must be met. The first condition is that Team 179 exists and performs tasks on the battlefield of the Black Dragon territory. 2 years have passed. Within 2 years, even if Team 179 has not killed any enemy, as long as they have existed in the Black Dragon territory for 2 years, they have made a meritorious service, completed their mission, and can return to repair. The second condition is that the 179 squad kills 2 enemies on the battlefield and obtains military merit points for killing 2 enemies. The 179 squad can return to repair at any time. The 2 enemies may seem like a small number, but in fact, this number is equivalent to 50% of the number of members of Team 179, and the enemy is not weaker than Team 179, so this requirement is a requirement for everyone. It is very difficult. This is equivalent to the fact that the troops sent out have to kill half the number of enemies equal to themselves before they can return. This is already a great victory. In fact, because of Xiaopinggan's existence, the average military merit points obtained by the 11 people who returned this time were more than 5 in terms of the number of enemies killed, which was almost equivalent to the successful completion of the battle. 10 times the required tasks. This record can simply brighten people's eyes, it is very rare. Moreover, everyone also captured an enemy flying boat, which was also a credit. Everyone had a tacit understanding before coming back about what happened on the battlefield. They would never mention it. If they wanted to talk about military achievements, they would say that it was the Void Divine Thunder that won the lottery. This was the top secret of the 2 teams. If others knew about it, there is such a super strategist in their 2 teams who can lead everyone to seek good fortune and avoid disaster. This super strategist may not be their turn. Xiaopinggan may be transferred by the people above at any time. Once Xiaopinggan leaves, they will not have such good luck next time they enter the Black Dragon territory. Therefore, the people of the 2 teams consciously formed a consensus and would not tell what happened on the battlefield even if they were killed. At this time, the light on the teleportation platform number 113 next to it lit up, and then 3 figures appeared on the teleportation platform. Those 3 people were wearing forbidden armors, but their faces were sad, without any smiles. 2 of them each person also held a black urn in their hands. As soon as the 3 people appeared on the teleportation platform, they flew away without saying a word. According to the rules and traditions of the military, the remains or ashes of fallen comrades can be brought back. The living people will not put the ashes and remains in their own space equipment like cargo, but will put them in their space equipment. The ashes are brought back in the urn or coffin for a ceremony and burial, which is the final respect for the victim. Therefore, many people who come back from the battlefield hold urns and the like in their hands. Seeing such a scene, the smiles on the faces of everyone in the 2 teams suddenly faded, and some people secretly sighed. They returned victoriously this time, but others may not have such luck. It's the bloody reality. Without Xiaopinggan, the ambush would have been disastrous for them. They might have ended in the same way, and they might not even be able to transport the bones back for burial. Okay, let's see you tonight. Mo Zhang nodded slightly and looked at Xiaopinggan. Where are you going now? I'll go to the Sutra Collection Hall to have a look, Xiaoping'an said. Are you working so hard? Ziling looked at Xiaoping'an and asked. It's okay today anyway, let's learn more. Xiaoping'an smiled softly and glanced at everyone. Don't worry, I know where Viang building is, I won't be late tonight. Okay, let's meet in the evening, Qin Li nodded. Okay, see you tonight. As everyone was talking, they had already flown up from the teleportation platform one by one, flying to different places. When they returned here, everyone was free. Everyone had their own things to do. Some wanted to see their friends, and some wanted to return to themselves. Looking at the kingdom of God, some wanted to go home to sleep and cultivate, and some wanted to integrate the world beads or find cultivation resources. Everyone had their own things, so everyone separated. Xiaoping'an flew directly towards the Sutra Collection Hall. From being unfamiliar when he first came to the land of the Divine Seal to having fought so many battles in the Black Dragon territory, Xiaoping'an no longer feels strange to this world as before. Instead, he has completely integrated into it, step by step in a down-to-earth manner. Move forward firmly towards your goals. The difficulty of becoming a god is beyond anyone's imagination. Even if you become a demigod, the difficulty of becoming a demigod is even more difficult than for a mortal to become a demigod, and you have to face more challenges. Previously, Xiaoping'an thought that after condensing the 99 divine bone ladders, it would be possible to ignite the divine fire of the gods all at once through accumulation or chance. But now, Xiaoping'an knew that this final power of the gods, the road is never that easy. Mastering the divine skills is the prerequisite for igniting the divine fire, and the ignition of the divine fire is like gathering fireflies into light. It also needs to be accumulated bit by bit. There is no towering tree in the world that grows overnight, and it is also impossible to achieve it overnight. Gods. Those strong demigods who have mastered many divine skills and ignited a little divine fire in their own temple mandala are also demigods, but compared with ordinary demigods, their strength is already on another level, so, some people call those who ignite a little divine fire as gods or spirits, which means the nobles among the demigods, the nobles close to the gods. The most typical feature of these demigods is that they can be seen from the back of their heads. The sacred halo that symbolizes holiness and the majesty of the avenue. There are many mysteries about deity becoming a god, and these secrets can be found in the secret scriptures in the Sutra Collection Hall, so the first thing Xiaoping'an did when he came back was to read the secret scriptures in the Sutra Collection Hall to enrich himself again. There are so many secret classics in the Sutra Collection Hall that it is simply impossible to stop. After flying for less than half an hour, they passed through a teleportation array. After coming out of the teleportation array, a few minutes later, they saw the familiar Sutra Collection Hall. After arriving at a Buddhist scripture tower in the Buddhist scripture hall, I spent a full 110 military merit points. In the private reading room, a metal puppet soon brought the book Xiaoping'an wanted. The outside of the book was wrapped in a simple iron box made of solar iron. When you opened the iron box, you saw the thick book made of pages of special metal. You took out the book and it read the mystical codex. When he opened the secret book, the mysterious words and information came to his face. Xiaoping'an was immediately immersed in it and learned many mysteries involving the gods. The gods' positions and personalities vary widely, some are strong and some are weak, they are not all the same. The moment the great avenue divine fire is ignited and the divine throne rises, the position and level of the god's godhead have been decided. The level of the divine fire is determined by the number of condensed divine flames. After a strong demigod condenses 9 rays of divine flame, he can ignite the divine fire to achieve godhood and officially become a god. There are also strong demigods who can condense 9 rays of divine flame. After the divine flame, those who are not in a hurry to become a god will continue to condense the divine flame. The more divine flames are condensed, the higher the level of the divine fire, and the stronger the divine status and godhead will be after igniting the divine fire. What shocked Xiaoping'an the most was that in this secret book, he also saw records about the Dark Tower and the method of destroying the Dark Tower. To destroy the Tower of Darkness, you do not have to wait until you can become a god. The previous statement that the Tower of Darkness can only be destroyed by becoming a god is a misunderstanding of people who do not know the true situation. In fact, as long as the god who ignited the first ray of divine flame is gathered together, a first-level strong man can destroy the Tower of Darkness using divine skills. This made Xiaopingyan see the hope of destroying the Dark Tower for the first time. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1028. The Viang building is not on the ground, but in the air. The 99-story pagoda-shaped attic stands in the void. In the Viang building, the scenery on each floor is different. The building is full of exotic flowers and animals, carved beams and painted buildings, and purple gold floors. With precious jade as the railings and jewels carved into it, everything is dazzling with splendor and splendor, so fantastic and magnificent that it is unimaginable. A gem randomly decorated in this building would be a priceless treasure in the world, but here, it is just an ordinary thing, a diamond as big as a pumpkin, carved out on the inside, with thousands of radiant faces on the outside. Here, is just an ordinary lampshade in the room. Inside the lampshade is an ever-burning lamp made of dragon and whale oil, which can illuminate for eternity and never go out. The floor in the building is covered with colorful purple gold. Purple gold is a kind of gold. 1 gram of purple gold can be exchanged for 10,000 taels of gold. This hard currency in the universe is only used in large pieces here. Just laying the floor. Those beautiful jade that could be used to make national jade seals in other worlds were even carved into large pieces and used as fences, chairs, and benches in the building. No one cared about them at all. After all, the people who can appear here are the group of people who are closest to the gods. These extremely luxurious treasures in the eyes of ordinary people are just good-looking earth and stones in the eyes of those who come here, so they are nothing. It was a bright moon in the sky, hanging on the roof of the building. The sky around the building was full of clouds, and the clouds were like gauze and curtains surrounding the surroundings. Coupled with the sound of music, silk, and bamboo coming from the Viang building, the entire Viang building was like a legend. It's like a fairyland. The powerful demigods and summoners who returned to the Crouching Dragon territory from various battlefields were living here one by one, drinking and singing, forgetting everything. Each floor of Viang building has an area of tens of thousands of square meters, and each floor is divided into 8 independent spaces according to the Bagua directions. Each space has 3,000 to 4,000 square meters, where people can enjoy themselves. At this moment, in a gorgeous hall covering an area of more than 2,000 square meters on the east side of the 26th floor of Viang building, a melodious and beautiful song sung by a woman is flowing out of the hall, and the lingering sound is fascinating. Side. What night is it today? I am in the middle of the boat. What day is it today? I have to be in the same boat with the prince. I am humiliated and treated well, and I am not ashamed. Xiaopingyan was in the hall, sitting on a soft cushioned jade seat, squinting his eyes slightly, drinking wine, and looking at the woman singing on the lotus-shaped stage of the water pavilion in the hall, slightly in a trance. In front of Xiaopingyan, the wine flows by him like a stream. If you want to drink, you can reach out and pick up a jade ladle to scoop wine from the stream. There is also a boat on the flowing wine stream. There is a small sailboat, and there are all kinds of delicacies on the sailboat. This scene is nothing more than a wine pool and a forest of meat. But the style and luxury here are incomparable to the wine pool and the meat forest. In the eyes of these demigods, the mortal emperors are like ants in the dust. How can the enjoyment of those emperors enter the eyes of these people? Except for Xiaopingyan, the other demigods in this hall were all sitting on one side of the hall, with delicacies from the wine river flowing in front of them. Some demigods directly summon the maids of their secret mandala. Or the waiters are standing nearby to serve, and the hall is filled with endless singing and music, as well as people drinking and drinking, making it extremely lively. Perhaps only this kind of environment can completely release everyone's pressure from the battlefield. My heart is constantly troubled, and I know that my prince. There are trees in the mountains, but the trees have branches, and my heart is happy with you, but you don't know, there are trees in the mountains, and the trees have branches, and my heart is happy with you, but you don't know. The beautiful and melodious singing echoed throughout the space, making people intoxicated. The woman on the lotus-shaped stage of the water pavilion finished singing and the music stopped. The woman bowed to everyone and then slowly retreated to Mo Xiang's side. Okay. The onlookers laughed and clapped and cheered. This singer has a wonderful voice, just like the sound of nature. I never thought that Brother Mo could summon such a top-notch person, Qin Ledu praised. Ha ha ha, show your ugliness, show your ugliness. Mo Xiang also laughed loudly, picked up the wine glass, and toasted everyone with a glass of wine. In the Viang building, everyone was drinking and chatting, while playing a game similar to drinking water. In the stream of fine wine, there was a small boat with a red sign floating around. Who was the boat floating in front of? Whoever was going to come up with a show here for everyone to enjoy. Just as the boat floated in front of Mo Xiang summoned the woman and asked her to sing a song and perform a show for everyone. The woman sang so well and her voice was so beautiful that even Xiaopingan couldn't help but look at it a few more times. He raised his glass to Mo Xiang and asked with a smile, "Brother Mo, what's the name of the woman you summoned? This singing is really unforgettable." Mo Xiang glanced at the woman he summoned, and the woman bowed to Xiaopingan, lightly parted her lips, "My name is Hani." Hani? Xiaopingan was slightly startled. I said, "It turns out that Mo Xiang summoned Hani. This Hani is the heroine whose voice lingers." Back then, Hani raised money to open a temple next to Yangmen in Linzi, the capital of Qi State. The solo concert became a sensation throughout Linzi. Unexpectedly, Mo Xiang could fuse this world pearl. The same world bead, the characters summoned by different summoners after fusion have different looks, abilities, special products, and wisdom. In addition to the various differences that occur when fusing the world bead, the character growth environment provided by the summoner's secret mandala is also different, so the same under the influence of these two factors, the world beads may be very different. The Hani summoned by Mo Xiang is considered to be at the top level, but the Hani summoned by others may not be able to perform like this. Look, who's coming next? Ah, it's Brother Long. Nan, he shouted. Ha ha ha, let's see what program Brother Long brought to us. The others' eyes also turned to Xiaopingan, and they laughed and cheered, making the atmosphere in the hall suddenly lively. Xiaopingan also discovered that the small boat with the red card on it floated in front of him after Hani, summoned by Mo Xiang, finished his performance, and it was his turn to perform. In the expectant eyes of everyone, Xiaopingan smiled slightly, "Then I will show my shame and perform a show for everyone." With Xiaopingan's gentle wave of his hand, a foggy portal appeared next to him, and then a man holding a pipa, with satin-like black hair hanging down his shoulders, wearing a light-colored skirt, with a water-colored gauze belt that graced his waist. A woman wearing a violet-colored hibiscus-swept floor-length skirt walked out of the summoning door. This woman is not only stunningly beautiful, but also has an ethereal temperament, with a hint of playfulness. She attracts everyone's attention as soon as she appears. This woman was Wang Zhejian. Wang Zhejian glanced at Xiaopingan with some resentment. She and Xiaopingan had not seen each other for a long time. After Wang Zhejian, another woman came out. The woman behind her was as beautiful as a peony and as vigorous as a man. She was round and round, with fresh plum blossoms on her cheeks and a goose-fat nose. She was wearing a light pink palace skirt and a white dress. Wearing a flowery tube top, a purple belt around her waist and jingle bells, her temples held high, and a jade hairpin horizontally tied across her hair. This woman also held a pair of swords in her hands. This woman is Gongsun Auntie. The two people who were summoned first bowed to Xiaoping'an. Xiaoping'an nodded slightly, and then they walked into the field. Then with the sound of Wang Zhejian's pipa, a real bullet broke through the real pearl sack, and gold burst out. The sound of the dishes was intermittent, and the entire hall fell silent for an instant. And amidst the sound of the pipa, Aunt Gongsun jumped onto the stage like a dragon, her sword light danced, and she began to dance with her sword. Aunt Gongsun's sword dance achieves the perfect unity of aesthetics and martial arts. Just watching from the side is enjoyable and immersive. Wang Zhejian sang softly while playing the pipa. Once upon a time there was a beautiful woman named Gongsun. She moved her sword in all directions with her sword dance. The viewer is as depressed as the mountains, and the heaven and earth are depressed for a long time. Hua Ruyi shoots at the 9 sunsets, as powerful as the dragons flying among the emperors. It comes like thunder to absorb its wrath, and ends like the clear light of the river and sea. Her crimson lips and beaded sleeves are lonely, and in the evening there are disciples who spread the fragrance. The beauty lining is in Beatty, and she dances wonderfully to this song. After having questions and answers with me, I felt more sad and sad. The late emperor had 8,000 maids, and Gongsun was the first in swordsmanship. 50 years seemed to have turned back, and the dust and wind had darkened the royal family. The disciples in the Liyuan were scattered like smoke, and the remaining figures of the female musicians reflected the cold sun. The piles of golden millet and southern trees have been arched, and the grass in Kyotang's stone city is bleak. The Dai feast is in a hurry and the songs come to an end, and the moon comes out in the east with great joy and sorrow. I don't know where I'm going, and I'm worried about my illness. Wang Zhejian's voice is different from Han Yi's voice just now. Wang Zhejian's voice has a kind of ethereal fairy spirit, like the soft chirping of jade in the empty valley, or like the gurgling mountain stream, the wind blowing the flowers, and the golden cicada. Ming, paired with Aunt Gongsun's sword dance, is simply stunning. Listening to Wang Zhejian's pipa and watching Lady Gongsun dancing with her sword, can an emperor enjoy this kind of enjoyment? While Xiaoping'an was drinking, he secretly thought, this is the world of demigods. When the sword dance stopped and the pipa playing stopped, the entire hall suddenly burst into warm applause. Everyone was amazed. Ha ha ha, it turns out Brother Long has such stunning beauty hidden in his mandala, it's really enviable. The pipa is a unique skill, and the sword dance is also a unique skill. It is rare to hear these two unique performances on the same stage in the world. Someone sighed and shook his head. Wang Zhejian and Aunt Gongsun had already returned to Xiaoping'an. One poured wine for Xiaoping'an, and the other peeled the lychee-shaped fruit for Xiaoping'an. Wonderful, wonderful, stunning, stunning. I didn't expect to see such a wonderful scene in Viang building today, ha ha ha. As the slightly arrogant laughter came, Xiaoping'an and the others were in the hall. The door has been pushed open, and then a man wearing a white gown, who looks particularly free and uninhibited, has strode in. A steward from Viang building followed this guy with an embarrassed look on his face, and his expression was about to cry. Brother Qin, Brother Mo, everyone, long time no see. After the guy came in, he smiled when he saw Qin Li and Mo Ziang, showing his white teeth, and opened a folding fan with a brush and placed it on his chest. He started to flap gently, coquettishly, and stinkingly. Since the last time we said goodbye, I'm not dead or crippled. I'm glad that you're not dead or crippled either. Alas, I'm really embarrassed to say it. I may have to go there again this time. You ordinary people are ahead of me. I have mastered another divine skill. The secret mandala has changed. As long as I master one more divine skill, I can gather the first bit of divine fire. I am afraid that next time we meet, you guys will have to call me. A shout of God, ha 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 ha. Well, actually I don't want to progress so fast, but my ancestors have already become gods. With the gods covering me, I am a noble among demigods. Naturally, I am better than ordinary people like you. Be a little stronger. Xiaopinggan looked at the expressions of Qin Li and Mo Xiang and found that both of them had expressions as if they had a toothache and had eaten a fly. The expressions of the others were similar. This expression, well, it was not hatred, but that kind of mixture. The expression that conveys a lot of emotions is the kind of expression one would expect when meeting a guy who can't stand it and is annoying. Looking at Nanhe, it seemed like he wanted to rush up and punch this guy in the face, but he was a little hesitant, as if he couldn't win. Everyone, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. As soon as Mr. Pei arrived at Viang Building, he came directly to this room and couldn't stop him. The shopkeeper of Viang Building quickly explained beside him with an embarrassed look on his face. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1029. Ha ha ha, shopkeeper, you have nothing to do here, go out. The guy waved his hand to the shopkeeper carelessly, although they are all ordinary people, with ordinary family backgrounds, no gods, no appearance. I'm handsome, but my strength is not as good as mine, and everyone is envious of me, but they are indeed my friends. We haven't seen each other for a long time, and we just happened to get together here today, so there won't be any trouble. The shopkeeper looked at Qin Li with some embarrassment. Seeing Qin Li gently nodding, the shopkeeper felt like he was being pardoned and hurriedly exited the hall and closed the door of the room. Mr. Pei, what's the name of this guy? He's so arrogant, Xiaopinggan asked Mo Xiang directly. Mo Xiang rolled his eyes, with a look of helplessness on his face. This guy's name is Mr. Pei. He is a descendant of the gods and the most annoying guy in the Black Flame. Mr. Pei? This guy is really weird. Xiaopinggan also felt that it was unusual for this guy to grow so big without being beaten to death. He probably was really strong. Is this guy strong? Mo Xiang was a little embarrassed. This guy has 7 divine skills and is about to advance to the level of a god. Qin Li and I have fought him, but we just couldn't beat him. The guy chuckled and walked straight to Zai Ling's side as if no one else was around. He looked at Zai Ling from Xiaopinggan's team with a serious look on his face. Zai Ling, I have always been short of someone who knows both cold and hot. You have to know, this position is not something everyone can dream of. There are still several people waiting in line, but I am not interested in them at all. I have always wanted to leave this position to you. I hope you will not let down my good intentions. When I become a god, you will have hope. It will not be good for you to hang out with these guys who have no future. At this point, the guy sighed and looked up at the hall at 45 degrees. Dome said in a low tone, alas, how many people can understand how lonely I feel when I am standing at the top of the world with snow? In this guy's words, the 11 powerful demigods who joined the Black Flame have all become guys with no future. When Xiaopinggan heard this, he couldn't help but want to step on this guy's face. One kick. Go away. Zai Ling said one word from between her teeth. At the same time, she picked up a gem lamp next to the table and smashed it towards this guy's head. The power of the demigod's action was naturally extraordinary. As soon as the gem lamp was thrown, it was as fast as lightning and brought with it a sense of power. However, when the gem lamp hit the face of Mr. Pei, it hovered in the air, as if being struck by the invisible hand stopped it, and then it was broken down into countless raw materials, and then automatically flew into the trash can. The guy still looked at Zai Ling with a gentle look on his face. Hey, Zai Ling, are you playing a hard-to-get game or do you want to see my Deluo Tiangang body-protecting divine skills again? I like your gentleness. You have a fierce temper, Zai Ling, please think carefully, my door is always open for you, you can catch my train of destiny at any time and become the woman of God. The current scene, to Xiaopinggan, was like seeing an arrogant and domineering rich second-generation scholar suddenly barge into the KTV party of his classmates uninvited. This is the first time Xiaoping'an has seen such a shabby guy, and this scene is actually quite interesting. Ahem, Mr. Pei, we are gathering here today. If you don't mind, let's get together. Qin Li said helplessly with a toothache on his face. Old Qin, you're still here to do something. Since you invited me, I won't be polite. I've never had any airs and like to have fun with the people. I'll just sit here and let you shine. Ha 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 ha. The guy laughed, and actually came all the way to Xiaoping'an's side, and sat down on the table next to Xiaoping'an. He glanced at Xiaoping'an and said proudly, "Look at you. He looks a bit unfamiliar, he must be new here, what's your name?" Dragon Fantasy. Xiaoping'an took a sip of wine, his expression as usual. "Xiaolong, these two women you summoned just now are interesting, how about you lend me your money for 2 months, the guy said carelessly, and patted his chest. "Whenever you encounter something in the future, just call me Pei. Young master will protect you and ensure that you walk sideways in Wolong territory." Walking sideways. If you were the one covering me, I'm afraid I'd have to be carried away. Xiaoping'an muttered. It is common for demigods with good relationships to borrow each other's summoned characters, just like borrowing tools. The two women I summoned are extraordinary. They are my personal maids. Under normal circumstances, I will not lend them to others unless. Xiaoping'an deliberately prolonged his tone to tease Mr. Pei. Appetite. Unless what? Mr. Pei asked curiously. Unless you can beat me in a bet, Xiaoping'an said calmly. Ha ha ha, what did I say? It turned out to be a bet, Mr. Pei laughed. To be honest, when I was called the god of gamblers in the casinos of the universe, your grandfather's grandfather was probably not even born yet. Well, tell me, how do you bet? I will bet with you today. Mr. Pei didn't notice the expressions of the other people in the room. When those people heard Xiaoping'an talking about making a bet, their eyes became strange. They knew Xiaoping'an's ability and saw Mr. Pei actually take the bait. The others began to exchange strange glances. This bet is very simple. You bet with the G-Pearl and it will be your winnings. If you beat me, my two maids will lend you 2 months. You can take away the G-Pearl and them. If I win, your World Pearl will belong to me, Xiaoping'an said with a smile. Mr. Pei is naturally not an idiot. He just thought about it and found that this method was fair and the bet he placed was not big. There were no pitfalls, so he nodded and said, I have plenty of world beads. How do you want to bet? We don't waste time betting on complicated things. Just guessing here, rock paper scissors, one hand determines the outcome. You should be able to guess the guessing game, right? Ha ha ha, interesting, Xiaolong, you are really ingenious, you actually want to play guessing game with me. Don't worry, I, Mr. Pei, am upright, brilliant, noble character, and morally flawless. Even if it is a guessing game, it's a simple game, but I won't bully you just because of my strength, Mr. Pei said. Although the guessing game is simple, under the attention of a group of demigods, this simple, direct and crude game is the most difficult to do anything. Even if the punch is a 10,000th of a second slower, under the attention of a group of demigods, his dirty behavior was clearly visible in his eyes. As for using magic to play any tricks, that was impossible. There is no one here who is not a 1,000-year-old fox, and those who use childish tricks are just to make people laugh. Xiaoping'an just smiled and nodded. I wonder what kind of world bead Master Pei's lucky number is. Mr. Pei smiled slightly and waved his hand, and there was a Divine Power World bead and a Summoning World bead on the table. The Divine Power World bead was Biun Qinshi, and the Magic World bead was Yegong Haolang. This is a Divine Power World bead, and this is a Divine Dragon Summoning World bead. Even if the fusion of these two world beads fails, it will not kill anyone. I wonder how these 2 world beads can be used as lottery winners, Mr. Pei said generously. Xiaopinggan discovered that Mr. Pei actually has advantages. At least he will not use any poisonous tricks to harm others. The 2 world beads he took out will not die if the fusion fails. Such world beads are actually better than ordinary world beads. It is precious, and the Yegonghao Long world bead is a rare summoning world bead instead of an ordinary divine power world bead, which is also rare. Okay, these 2 world beads are fine, Xiaopinggan nodded, with a smile on his face. Then let's get started. If I say 1, 2, 3, how about we punch together to decide the winner? Okay, no problem. Mr. Pei's eyes turned to the faces of Wang Zhejian and Ant Gongsun, and he nodded immediately. 1, 2, 3. As soon as Xiaopinggan's words fell, both of them punched at the same time like lightning. Mr. Pei brought out the hammer, and Xiaopinggan brought out the cloth. Xiaopinggan was victorious. Mr. Pei was still slightly stunned. Wang Zhejian next to Xiaopinggan glanced at Mr. Pei, then smiled and took the 2 boundary beads on the table to Xiaopinggan. Admit it, I won this one, thank you Mr. Pei for the boundary pearl. Mr. Pei smiled slightly and took out 2 more boundary beads and placed them on the table. It's just 2 boundary beads. It's a joke. It doesn't matter. Let's have another one. Okay, 1, 2, 3. The 2 punched again. Xiaopinggan still used the cloth, and Mr. Pei still used the hammer. Xiaopinggan won again, and Wang Zhejian calmly put away the 2 boundary beads. This time, there were 4 boundary beads piled in front of Xiaopinggan. Come again. Mr. Pei took out 2 more boundary beads and said in a deep voice, this time I will count. Okay, Mr. Pei, please. 1, 2, 3. Xiaopinggan used the cloth again, but Mr. Pei still used the hammer. Mr. Pei lost for the 3rd time. This time, Mr. Pei's eyes twitched. Mr. Pei, I have already won 6 world beads, do you want to come again? Xiaopinggan asked with a smile. Luck, I didn't expect that Xiaolong, you were so lucky today that you could beat me 3 times in a row. It doesn't matter, it's just a few world beads, let's do it again. Mr. Pei took a deep breath and took out 2 more boundary beads, I'll count them this time. Good. In less than 3 minutes, a total of 18 world beads were placed in front of Xiaopinggan. Among these 18 world beads, Xiaopinggan had not yet fused with them. There were at least 12. Xiaopinggan's face burst into laughter. And Mr. Pei's face turned a little pale, and he looked at his hands a little suspiciously, and then looked at Xiaopinggan, as if he had seen a ghost. Mr. Pei has this confidence. In the 9 games just now, the guy in front of him really didn't play any tricks. Otherwise, it would be impossible to deceive his eyes and perception. Who is he? He is Mr. Pei, but he lost 9 games in a row. This is too unacceptable. Mr. Pei feels like he has met his nemesis. He has never encountered anything so aggrieved. Young Master Pei doesn't have many realm beads. Brother Long, forget it. I'll save you from getting anxious if you lose too much. Young Master Pei is about to advance to the level of a god. Think more about yourself in the future. This guy Moziang probably I already understood what was going on, but I just wanted to tease him at this time. Yes, Mr. Pei is very powerful. Brother Long, listen to my advice. If Mr. Pei disregards his own dignity and turns against you, you are no match for Mr. Pei. This is an immediate loss. Why don't you give Pei a few world beads back? Young master, don't win so harshly. This guy Nan he also suppressed a smile and said seriously. It's a joke. I'm going to become a god soon. Will I lose face for this little world pearl? You ordinary people, don't speculate on me with dirty thoughts. How can you understand that my son is as broad as the sea? Big heart. Mr. Pei laughed angrily, his face a little deformed. Come on, let's continue. Mr. Pei, why don't you forget it? I'm lucky today. If Mr. Pei still has the world beads, you are welcome to come to me at any time. Let's bet another day. If Mr. Pei feels sore about the world beads on the table, you can take them all. Go back, just think we were joking, Xiaopinggan said slowly. How can I see this little boundary pearl in my eyes? If I lose, I lose. Do you think I am a person who doesn't keep his word? Mr. Fei gritted his teeth, a little anxious. Without the boundary pearl, I have other things that I can bet on, but I don't believe that I can't win even once in the guessing game. Oh, Mr. Pei, what else? I still have a divine crystal. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1030. At this moment, Mr. Pei is already a bit like a gambler who is eager to lose. Although the Jizu he lost to Xiaopinggan was not many, what troubled Mr. Pei the most was why he couldn't even win against a rookie in guessing games, and he actually lost 9 in a row. The Jizu was a small matter. The face is great, look at the gloating eyes of the guys next to me. If I don't get this round tonight, these guys can laugh at me about this in the future. These 2 summoned women that I have a crush on must be taken away tonight. In such a simple gambling game as guessing game, I want to win one game no matter what, but I don't believe it. Could this guy be my nemesis? He has won all the games. Mr. Pei's temper has risen. Looking at Mr. Pei, who was determined to bet with him, Xiaopinggan smiled slightly and said, I wonder how many divine crystals Mr. Pei still has. Not much. I still have more than 5 million divine crystals with divine power points. Speaking of the number of divine crystals, Mr. Pei looked like a rich man when he saw his bulging pockets, and suddenly there was a hint of confidence in his tone. I think Mr. Pei's gambling is noble. Our gambling is meaningless. I wonder if Mr. Pei has the guts to play an exciting game with me, Xiaopinggan asked deliberately. Speaking of the topic of dare or not, Mr. Pei even laughed. If he didn't dare to face a rookie who had just joined the Black Flame today, would he still hang around in the Wolong leader in the future? In this Wolong territory, there is nothing that others dare to do that I don't dare to do. Tell me, how do you want to bet? Mr. Pei asked directly. Xiaopinggan said calmly, it's very simple. Let's just decide the outcome. All the world beads that young Master Pei lost to me just now, plus the ownership of the 2 of them, and I will add 4 million points of divine crystals, it will be enough make a bet with Mr. Pei. If Mr. Pei can beat me in the next round, Mr. Pei will be able to win back everything he lost to me just now, and I will give you another 4 million points of divine crystals. Win 5 million divine crystals in one hand? Hearing this bet, even Mo Xiang and Qin Li were stunned, and each of them breathed a little softer. Although the demigods are heroic, this is a bet of 5 million points of divine crystals. If placed in other chaotic places, these 1 million points of divine crystals are enough to hire a powerful god-level killer to kill a demigod, so this number is not small for any powerful demigod. The amount, such a large bet, is actually determined by guessing, which is something that everyone has never seen before. Mr. Pei didn't ask Xiaopinggan if he could get 4 million points of divine crystals, because by this time, he also felt that this little dragon was not an ordinary character, but an opponent worthy of his attention. Things like this will not happen to a strong demigod with such an aura. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect to meet such an interesting person like you here today, Mr. Pei laughed. Okay, let's decide the outcome. If you win this one, I will give you another 5 million. Point the divine crystal. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became tense again. Not to mention Xiaopinggan, even the people next to him were excited at this time. They were secretly worried that Xiaopinggan's divination would fail this time. After all, this was a 5 million point divine fortune. Jing, Grandma, if you rely on the demigod to automatically recover every month, 5 million divine power points can already make people recover for 10 or 20 years. Then come on, Xiaopinggan smiled slightly and rubbed his hands. Wait a minute, Mr. Pei stared into Xiaopinggan's eyes, I'll count this time. Okay, please. In front of everyone, Mr. Pei took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a few seconds, and then opened them again. The breath of his whole body changed. At this moment, Mr. Pei was still standing in the room, but it feels like he doesn't exist at all. He is like a black hole of nothingness standing in the room. The whole person has no energy, any sense of existence, and even his thoughts have disappeared. This was a display of the realm of cultivation, and the faces of the onlookers changed slightly. He, Mr. Pei is indeed a person who is about to become a god. I am afraid that Brother Long has some ability and spiritual skills to sense his thoughts, so he actually annihilated all his own thoughts. His whole person is empty, and he is empty again. Everything is born out of nothing, admire, admire. Mo Ziyang spoke from the side, actually reminding Xiaopinggan. Xiaopinggan squinted his eyes and looked at Mr. Pei, without any unnecessary expression on his face. Just as Mo Ziyang said, for a strong person at this level, the so-called guessing game actually shows only the flash of lightning in the showdown. It's just a thought in people's consciousness, but in Mr. Pei's current state, he has already shown his true skills and suppressed all his thoughts, fearing that he would guess it. It's just, how can I know his thoughts? I'm just divination. Divination is aimed at the future, not the present. Even if you are a stone, it is a black hole, but the stone and the black hole are in different time periods. There are also signs of birth, destruction, and destruction within, and destiny can also be divined. A few seconds later, Mr. Pei opened his eyes like dry wells and began to count calmly, 1, 2, 3. The consciousness of the two men touched slightly in the void, and they punched at the same time, thoughts blooming in their hands. Xiaopinggan is scissors, and Mr. Pei is cloth. Xiaopinggan wins again. Someone in the room gasped loudly. The result of the bet that decided to win 5 million points of divine crystals was just like that. The 10th. At this moment, Mr. Pei's face could no longer maintain the emptiness and calmness just now. Instead, it turned completely white. His fingers trembled slightly. He could lose 10 times in a row. Mr. Pei couldn't figure out why. Is it luck to lose to this ordinary man in front of me? Or is it some kind of skill or divine skill that I don't know about? Mr. Pei's head was a little confused for a moment. All in all, this man could completely overwhelm himself through the simple guessing game. This is by no means a simple thing. Mr. Pei didn't say anything more. He just glanced at Xiaopinggan, waved his hand, and then a mountain-like divine crystal appeared in the hall, shining with golden light and dazzling the eyes. Brother Long's ability is really admirable. I've learned a lesson today. After losing 10 games in a row, Xiaopinggan was no longer little dragon in Mr. Pei's mouth, but became Brother Long. Mr. Pei's expression changed. Looking at Xiaopinggan solemnly, today's guessing game is interesting. I will come back to Brother Long for advice when I have the opportunity. Then, Mr. Pei glanced at the melon-eating people around him, snorted coldly, and said, "Ahem, why are you ordinary people so happy? Today, the Japanese master is gambling here for fun, and loses 5 million points of divine crystals in a game of guessing. It can be regarded as opening the eyes of ordinary people like you to witness a good story. Xiling, how about it? You have seen my strength, you can come to me at any time." Damn it! This sentence made a lot of people's faces darken, and they wanted to come over and stomp dozens of feet on his face. After saying this, Mr. Pei didn't even look back. He turned around and walked towards the door. He was too embarrassed to stay here and pretend to be a bigot. Seeing Mr. Pei walking away so cleanly, Xiaopinggan secretly admired this guy. If he really met a guy with the characteristics of a bad gambler, he would definitely be jealous at this time and want to increase the chips. As for this guy, at the critical moment, he can break suddenly, step away, and control his own temperament and desires. This is his ability. As soon as Mr. Pei left the hall suddenly became cheering and lively again. 5 million divine crystals, ha ha ha, it's so cool to see that annoying guy deflate for the first time. Nan, he laughed. That guy will probably scratch his head when he goes back and not understand what happened. Someone else gave Xiaopinggan a thumbs up. Ahem. Qin Li also had a smile on his face, coughed twice, and reminded everyone, what Brother Long won by guessing, this is luck. What skills are needed, are you right? Everyone suddenly understood and nodded. Yes, yes, this is luck, this is luck. Brother Long is invincible in guessing games, ha ha ha. Xiaopinggan waved his hand gently, and the 5 million points of nerves in the hall suddenly started to spin. Pieces of divine crystals flew to everyone's table like waterfalls. In the blink of an eye, everyone's table had more. He bought 100,000 points of divine crystals, and the remaining divine crystals were collected by Xiaopinggan. Ha ha ha, those who have seen these divine crystals have a share. Let's all be happy together. I also want to thank Mr. Pei for his generosity. Unexpectedly, there was still a divine crystal available. Everyone laughed and accepted the divine crystal. The atmosphere in the hall became even more lively. They continued to drink and have fun, leaving Mr. Pei behind. Everyone gathered until almost early in the morning, and then left Viang Building with unfinished thoughts. Just as everyone was preparing to leave Viang Building, at the door of Viang Building, Xiaopinggan met a group of demigods who were also preparing to leave Viang Building. Brother Lin, you heard that Xiaopinggan, who was wanted by the demon god, appeared in the fantasy realm and killed several demigod masters on the demon god's side. Ah, Xiaopinggan, that person actually showed up. Is this news reliable? I thought he would always hide. Of course it's reliable. One of my brothers in the Huantian realm just sent me the news. The domineering demon god is going crazy. They are mobilizing their troops. It seems that there is a big move, and our side may also react. Xiaopinggan appeared in the fantasy realm and killed the master who dominated the demon god's side. When Xiaopinggan heard the news, he was slightly stunned. When did I go to the Huantian realm and kill the demigod master who dominated the demon god's side? How come I didn't know?